Hello everyone. Before I even begin this video, I just want to say I'm recording this from my phone in my car at a disclosed location just because, well, I'll explain another time in another video about what's been going on in my life, but I want to get into it. Now, I know I've been gone for a long while due to these circumstances. I got a government job back in March of this year, and I had to get used to it. I, for the first time since Halloween of 2020, finally have my own personal vehicle that I'm currently sitting in, and, well, things have been getting better. As things have started to stabilize and financial needs are being reduced, I knew that I needed to come back to teach deliverance and spread the word of the Lord Jesus Christ. There are a few political issues that need to be addressed, but before I continue, I must say that from now on, I'm no longer calling them political issues, but rather the battle for the spiritual welfare and the soul of mankind. This is no longer political issues, these are spiritual warfares, just like back in the days of the Old Testament and the New Testament and the modern era. And nothing speaks truly to me on that issue than what has recently been a very political dividing topic, the Sound of Freedom. For the number of you that have never heard of the film, allow me to explain. The Sound of Freedom is a documentary-style action film about the real-life former agent of Homeland Security, Tim Ballard, or Ballard, I hope I'm saying that right, played by former Jesus actor Jim Caviezel. It was directed by Alejandro Gomez Monteverde, I hope I'm pronouncing that too, and produced through Santa Fe Films in association with Angel Studios. The movie can be simply summarized that it is following the events that took place in Colombia, where a rescued trafficking child asked Tim Ballard to find his missing sister, and the events of the movie are following that journey, while also exposing known methods that human traffickers use to capture and transport children around the world. It's a pretty gruesome experience. Now, full disclosure, at the time of recording this video and editing it, I haven't seen the film. I have intentions of seeing it, but let's just say things are starting to improve, and having the opportunity to just go see an independent film or any film at this point is not always a luxury at the moment. With that being said, the reason why I say it's been a dividing point is because lately what has been seen in the media is a continuous cabal of far-left political ideologues like the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times and many others, claiming that the movie is a QAnon conspiracy. In other words, these are the people who want to normalize pedophilia, and anything that stand against their want to go to Epstein Island is obviously something they're going to hate. And if you want proof of this type of behavior, just look up Noah Bertlasky. Noah Bertlasky is a pedophile apologist, activist, pretending to be a journalist who wrote a article claiming that The Sound of Freedom is a horrible movie, while also being the same guy who Shoeonhead in her own video showed that he was, well, the same pedophile who got on to her for criticizing cuties because, again, he's a pedophile.
Meet Noah Berlatsky. Now, our friend Noah has some interesting takes. Pedophiles are essentially a stigmatized group. Certain people get designated as deviants. People hate them. Yes. And parents are tyrants. Parent is an oppressive class, like rich people or white people. He also wrote a few blogs on the Prostasia website. Child sex workers' biggest threat: the police. Okay, let's back up for a second. There's no such thing as a child sex worker, Noah. That's called a human trafficking victim. Then I was thinking to myself, why does this Noah dude's account look so familiar? Turns out, he's the fucking journalist who got mad at me like a year ago for criticizing the Netflix movie Cuties and targeting it, fueled in part by racism and sexism directed at a black woman filmmaker. Wrong. Leftists like Shoeonhead and Vosh are critical of the film. Shoeonhead is a notorious alt-right asshole. Also, you just tagged 2 aggressive, horrible accounts. Please delete that tweet. You're putting people on the thread at risk.
Now, that's the end of my script that I wrote down, because I've been gone since the last video I made, and I thought to myself, I wanted to come back with some flair, but as I've learned, some old habits don't ever seem to die. Some habits truly do die hard, and that includes the fact that either, unless I'm improvising or trying my darndest, it is an issue attempting to write scripts for these kinds of dialogues in YouTube videos. So I'm just going to improvise podcaster style. So here's the truth. What I noticed is that not only is this type of treatment the way this movie is being treated by these people. Oh, by the way, you also had people sharing videos on Twitter, all that Matt Walsh made a compilation video of, where people were sabotaging the movie, which, by the way, while there were people reporting that the majority of the sabotages were happening at the AMC theaters, apparently the CEO had come out saying that they actually had screened the movie in an overwhelming number of their locations and multiple times a day. So it's not AMC themselves, but rather a bunch of hacky activist, pedophile apologist, child sex trafficking normalizers, all posing as the resistance type of people, basically doing what the feminists did in their arguments back in 2015 when they'd pull fire alarms or turn off specific things in the facilities. Just look up this stuff. Trust me, it really says a lot. But the reason also why I bring this up is because it reminds me of something I saw back in the oh-so family-friendly Drag Queen Appreciation Month of June Queer Month, where, hey, guess what? We saw a certain very important thing that was said.
You'd think the alphabet people and their media apologists wouldn't want to draw any more attention to it. But you'd be wrong. The Coming for Your Children chant has been used for years at Pride events, according to long-time march attendees and gay rights activists, who said it's one of many provocative expressions used to regain control of slurs against LGBTQ people. Right, so they didn't just chant, "We're coming for your children" at this event, or at recent events. They've been doing it for years. Yeah, I don't think this was quite the devastating comeback you'd intended. The chant has been used for years. It's traditional. That makes it even worse then. It's not happening. It's a right-wing conspiracy theory. It's happening and it's good. Many such cases. They're coming for our children. You homophobic bigot. We're coming for your children. They've been saying that for years. It's pride culture, bigot. Twitter's community notes had a field day. First pointing out that there was zero evidence cited in the article that it had been used for years, then pointing out that it actually originated from this 2021 video.
You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked? Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it.
That's right. Apparently, you remember how since the 70s, 80s, 90s, and all the decades prior, and since then, and even in today, there have been all those evil conspiracy right-wingers who have said that homosexuals are just a bunch of predators coming for our children to normalize them as sex objects for their pedophile behaviors. Yeah, well, remember when they were constantly called homophobic and bigoted, and that was nothing but right-wing conspiracies? Well, according to NBC, they've been saying that all along, that they are coming for your children, and that all those right-wingers are now vindicated. and validated. Thanks, NBC. You've done it again. But in all seriousness, I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to stand here and say that all gay people are bad. No. In fact, I have proof. Just look up the organization Gays Against Groomers. I've actually started following them on Twitter lately just because they are the ones who are, well, let's be honest about the political left nowadays, or, well, also the political right. There tends to be a type of mental ideologue problem with these two political factions where, for example, on the left, if you're going to talk about an issue about, let's say, blacks or gays or any minority, well, if you're white, straight, heterosexual, cisgendered, and God forbid, a Christian, well, then, according to them, you're so out of the loop of any of those things that your opinion has no value. So, whenever a homosexual comes along, like Gays Against Groomers, and says, hey, it's not normal for homosexuals to just want to do these kinds of activities with children, like what we've been seeing in elementary schools, it really says a lot that then, of course, they were accused of being called far right, because, of course, anyone who dares to not agree with the mainstream far left mentality, you're not really black, you're not really gay, said Joe Biden. Which also says a lot about how they view all the people they claim they care about. I believe Ted Cruz said it best himself when he said
that when it comes to issues of race, I think both the press and the modern left are hypocritical on this question. That they only define someone as black, or they only define someone as Hispanic, if they agree with them ideologically.
Oh, and on the subject of pedophilia, have you ever wondered what's really going on in the border? Well, I'll get back to that in a second, but back to what I was saying. But it's also the same thing I tend to notice on the political right because, well, let's also be honest. Not every right-winger is a Christian, and not every Christian is either Protestant or Catholic. They'll be one of the two, or sometimes they'll even claim to be non-denominational, similar to, well, myself. I'm in Deliverance, so I'm just Bible. But with that being said, I've noticed that Catholics tend to have a similar mentality, Protestants a similar mentality, where the only people that can truly criticize or come from a point of view of understanding is if they actually read the Bible. But let's be honest, there are plenty of atheists who read the Bible just so they can say, gotcha, but, you know, most of their criticisms are out of context anyway. I know from my personal experience. But with all that said, I love it whenever you find out there is an organization that shows up and says, hey, this isn't normal and we have a problem. And then the left will respond in some stupid way of saying, no, you're not really gay because if you don't want to do this kind of stuff, then you must not really be gay, which is the quiet part said out loud, that they think that, you know, it's funny that they'll actually think that. They think that if you're a homosexual and you're not wanting to normalize all this child sex transgender education garbage, that you're not really gay. So basically, if you're not a predator, you're not really gay. Really says a lot, doesn't it? But with that being said, back to what I was gonna say. Have you ever wondered why, when Obama was in office, you had all kinds of kids in cages that they didn't talk about? Oh, and it turned out that a lot of those kids were being given over to human trafficking experts. That's a word I'll use, but all kinds of human traffickers who were basically shifting them across the border to be given into the hands of God knows who. And then only whenever Trump was in office, all of a sudden the view of kids in cages became a very iconic subject, including with AOC, the legendary brainless bimbo that she is, not even much of a bimbo. having done the iconic pose that I then gave to Martha's Vineyard in a previous video, or at least somebody else made that thumbnail, and I applaud whoever it was. But I find it fascinating that now that creepy Uncle Bad Touch Joe, Mumble Stumble, Grope and Sniff, is in office, and he's been in there for 3 years, ruining everything he touches, including children, and every time he touches a child, the gas prices go up. But what I find fascinating is that the kids in cages incidents not only went back to the worst conditions they used to be before Trump, but they've gotten worse. And I know you're going to ask, but Trump put kids in cages. Oh, that's true. He put children in prison cells, just like, the fact that they are illegal immigrants being brought in. But also, when he was in office, one of the things he instituted was DNA checks. So that whenever there were people who just showed up and said, oh, by the way, we're the random stereotypical parents of this senorita or senor or little child, hey, guess what? They found out they weren't the parents. They weren't related to him in any way. They were all just traffickers. And Trump was trying to end that. Oh, and remember how they treated Trump? Says a lot again, doesn't it? So, what I'm here to say is that the behavior of certain individuals towards the sound of freedom, certain individuals' treatment towards minorities, certain individuals' treatment towards what's really going on in the world, really speaks volumes. Now, I'm not gonna pretend that it's everyone. As I said, Gays Against Groomers is an organization that exists. But also, personally, I like to think that for most people, it's what you would call an iceberg problem. On the surface, they think that they're helping, or that they're doing something that's a good thing. But once you go 1 or 2 levels deeper, you find out there's actually some evil going on. So for all the people who are saying that, hey, we should just let the children come here, catch and release, you don't realize what you're agreeing to. You don't realize how it's basically a giant blatant cover-up for human trafficking. Because you have to also remember, as the almighty Lolly from some of the videos I've been watching about him has said, that Epstein and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and all these other kinds of people, they're all known for diddling children, but, don't bring that up along with the cocaine that just magically, oh, we have all these cameras in the White House, just like all the cameras in the Congress building, but we're not gonna, show who brought it in. We'll make sure we know who didn't spend who tried to swindle 1 cent out of their taxes last year and arrest them for tax fraud, but the white privilege, the man who is the literal definition and example, other than Hillary Clinton, of white privilege for 47 years of anti-black, let's lock them up for having cocaine. I wrote the dang bill, 1994, Biden crime bill for anyone who had cocaine on them, yet you have his son on cocaine worse than anything anybody ever thought about with George W. Wars are how my daddy taught me chess. Bush, when he was on drugs. Hunter is worse, and yet you have all these people. We have the Twitter files, now called X files, that show that the FBI were covering that stuff up. So at what point will you realize that if the Republicans do something, it's all over mainstream media, but if the Democrats do something, well, it depends on if you're a loyalist to the party or if you're an outsider, because even some of theirs gets destroyed, but only if it's convenient to the rest of the party to look good. Because otherwise, if you're a true loyalist and a true believer, then the FBI and the CIA and all these other organizations will run defense for you, even when you bring cocaine into the White House. So, I'm going to make videos I'm doing what I can. I hired a new friend to make the thumbnails, so I hope you all like the thumbnail for this video. And I'll just be talking about random things. For the issues of the day, as I'm going to call them, I'm just going to do podcast style. I'm not going to write a script. I'll just write notes and then just improvise it like a radio host. I'll try to keep it clean so that YouTube can't complain about too much graphic language, and when the day comes that my videos are monetized, I can at least get monetization. But otherwise, when it comes to the spiritual videos, those I'll try to be scripted. So I hope you all enjoy, and God bless. Good journey. Christ loves you, and take care.